there, folks. Daryl Prale here, Chief Revenue Officer at VanillaSoft. And I got to tell you one thing, okay? If there's anything that my sales reps love more than getting a dynamic, qualified, kick-ass inbound lead, I don't know of it. I really don't. So how do we here at VanillaSoft do that? Because you may not be aware of this, but we recently won an award for having one of the best blogs in the entire industry. And the blog is a key driver of inbound leads for us. Our reps love the blog. Beyond that, our reps are active in the blog. So it's not just a chance for people like myself to be visible as an officer of the company. It's also a chance for the rank and file to build their brand. So we said, why don't we kick back, relax, and just have a little coffee chat about how we got here? Because it wasn't easy. And a lot of you struggle with this. So with that, I'm joined by my good friends, Milana, Nat, and Elena. These women do all the work. I take all the glory. Management 101. That's it. And we're just going to talk about it. So Milana, let's start with you. We do this blog thing. It has some success. It's got traffic. I'm going to ask you two simple questions. In your opinion, in your experience, why do we do it? And then a small little question. Do we have a process that we follow? So there we go. Start with that.
So thanks, Daryl, for having us. So why do we do the blog? Well, besides that every company needs a blog, we really need our customers and leads to have some value out of our blog. So we need to cover all these topics, and there's a lot of topics we need to cover. And we do have a process. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of small things, but generally it's a three-way process. We start by doing the research and SEO behind the blog. Then we continue to content creation, and then afterwards reviewing and promoting the blog. So I would say these are the three main processes we have.
All right. So for simplicity, because when you do a blog, there's a lot of repurposing you can do of it, and we're going to get into that. And that includes this video. So we'll likely take this video and segment it into smaller sections that are bite-sized, consumable. So let's do it one section at a time. Why don't we start there? Let's start with research. So I'm just going to throw some questions out there, and the three of you just jump in. I am not assigning. This is the wild, wild west. Here we go. The biggest issue I have, the biggest issue I hear with people, especially sales reps or marketers who are tasked with coming up with ideas, is how do you come up with topics? And not just that, but topics that are fresh, that resonate, that connect with the audience. How do you do that? Tell me.
Well, it's actually a lot difficult to do that because, VanillaSoft blog is up and running for almost a decade now. We already have covered a lot of blogs. But first things first, what I do is do keyword research, which is I go through everything that people are searching for and try to match what is it that we have and what is it that we still haven't covered. So this is pretty much how I start with it. Also, you want to think of those keywords as something that's, very important for VanillaSoft audience, so not something too general that you want to cover. So that's pretty much the first thing, the keyword research. After that, a lot of the good input for new blogs comes for our salespeople and sales team. Once a month, we get some input for them. They tell us what they want to hear about, which is probably the topics that other salespeople want to know more about. And then the third, I would say, and this is what everyone does, is just check how your competition is doing. So what is it that they are covering you're not? And I think these three are pretty much how we come up with new blog topics for original posts.
And can I just add to that? So some things that we have done in the past too is where there's a cultural, pop culture topic or something like that, we might tie into it to kind of get someone's attention, or there's influencers that you follow, something that they're talking about, hot topics, and you incorporate those into the ideas of what you're writing about as well.
Okay, so then I got to ask the question. You mentioned keyword research. So that sounds great, but how are you doing that keyword research? What tools are you using to do the keyword research? And where do the keywords come from?
Well, I use usual tools that SEOs use, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, but the tools I use for keyword research is Ahrefs. It pulls out the keywords from Google and pretty much tells you, okay, this type of keyword, people are searching for it in this amount of times, and it's super hard to rank for, or it's easy to rank for. So you kind of map those two out and try to figure out what is it that you can rank for, but you haven't covered, but it's still relevant to your audience.
Okay, so I want to ask a question here. I know we're still in the research, but everybody thinks of blogs being a new blog, and hence there's research and keywords and everything for a new blog. But do you ever go back to an old blog and do the exact same thing?
Yeah. But what we tend to do with these blog updates that we do is not just, update any blog. We look at the stats and say, okay, what are the blogs that have the most traffic coming to them? And just checking, is there something there to update? For example, if it's evergreen content, you just want to leave it like that. But there are some blogs that might have a year in the title that might say, okay, this is tips for, 2018, and people are still visiting that. So you might want to update that, repurpose a bit, change the stats, change the references a bit, maybe add a bit of text to it. So we usually do that.
Okay. So here's my next question. If I look at my average buyer, so I'll use VanillaSoft as an example. In the audience, you guys can relate to your own organization. We sell a sales platform, but our typical buyers would be somebody who's maybe the head of sales, obviously, but also the head of marketing, also the head of revenue operations. And there's going to be stratification. There's going to be executives reading our content. There's going to be rank and file users reading our content. So that's a lot of people and a lot of different, unique requirements to speak to in your blog. So how do we focus on our target audience?
Well, what we do is sort of a funnel approach when it comes to content. So we try to cover topics that are in all stages of the funnel. For example, the top is the awareness stage, which is more the general topics. So we might want to cover, for example, sales phrase that people, are looking for, or give them some sales strategy or tips, but that may be too general. So what we try to do with this content is try to bring people to the website. They want to check it out, get what they're looking for, and maybe stick around on the VanillaSoft website. Check out our other resources, podcasts, register for a webinar, read an ebook. So this is the first stage we want to cover. Those general, but not too general, topics that serve for the awareness stage. After that, what we try to do with the blog specifically is cover the middle as well, the middle of the funnel. And that may be some of the problems, more specific problems people are looking for. And at this point, they are already familiar with the problem, but not with an exact solution. So they may type, for example, sales engagement versus sales enablement platform. So this is kind of topic that we can try to work around to explain to them. And besides those, the funnel approach, we also do industry-related topics. For example, the insurance being one of the bigger industries for VanillaSoft, so we might want to cover insurance-related topics. So I think that's our process with it.
And I think it can be hard to stay focused on who you're talking to, because sometimes when we're going through the review process, we started off talking to sales managers. And then as we went through, we started talking to sales reps. So during that review process, we have to kind of catch that, because it can be hard to sometimes stay focused. Okay, who am I talking to in this blog? And so catching that and following up with that and making sure we're staying on topic with who we're talking to is one of the key things that we do as well.
So I know one of the challenges that content creators, especially newer content creators, struggle with is they're going to come to an organization or a client and they're going to say, listen, I'm a great writer and I understand my craft, but I don't know your buyer. I don't know your audience. I don't know what a head of sales wants versus a head of revenue operations wants. I don't know what an executive wants versus what a rank and file user wants. So how do we help? What do you guys recommend? What do you guys do to make sure all of our writers or contributors understand those key messages and talking points that our target audience would react well to?
Well, I think getting aligned with the buyer persona, with what a product is, not only that the marketing team thinks about marketing, but also sales, so that they're in touch with the salespeople, and also what is the rest of the content this team is producing. Check the webinars, check the ebooks, check something that's industry related. Have a bit of a broad perspective when it comes to that.
Yes, and I sometimes get not requirements, but a description of who I am addressing in my content. So, for example, sometimes I'm advised to write to specific issues and use the tone suitable for I don't know CEO audience, which means that I can use some bigger words or something like that, more complex. And sometimes it's for general audience, and then I have to simplify my tone. So we have an agreement, let's say that, not an agreement, but we discuss who we are going to target with particular pieces of content.
And I think when it's related to the messaging, knowing what pain points and what features and everything will speak to the different areas, like your sales manager is going to be more interested in like your dashboards, and then your sales reps are going to make, how are you going to make my life easier? So focusing the messaging to the pain points and making it speak to the person that you're talking to, your audience.
All right, Elaine, I want to come back to you. You had mentioned often you may tie it into pop culture news stories, which is relevant, obviously. What about seasonality, though? Is that another angle that you would want to consider? And if so, why?
Absolutely. Because like fundraising, one of our verticals is fundraising. So we want to make sure that we're talking about fundraising during their high peak times. So seasonal things are definitely going to kind of fit into your process for your blogs, because you want to talk about the things that are relevant to them at the time it's relevant.
Okay. So to me, I always often think of the classic, it's back to school, right? You know, so there's buying seasons, to your point, exactly. Government might have a certain season where they're active and another season where they're not. But then there's back to school, and there's more consumer side, there's holidays, what are you doing to celebrate, I don't know, the start of spring. I don't know. There you go.
Or the
all right. So
top 10
seasonality
naughty
can
list
be
for sales reps.
top 10 naughty list for sales reps. Definitely maybe a Christmas or December element. I like that one. Can you relate to that, Elena? Are you on any of those top 10
I've
naughty
learned
lists?
it from you, though.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right. I want to bring it back to SEO, and then we'll wrap this up on the whole research side. You guys mentioned SEO early on. Now, SEO, I find a lot of the content writers don't understand. They know they need to do it, but, what's the significance? What's the impacts? Why should I do it? Is this a step I can skip? If I'm already looking at the keywords, can I just take some of those keywords? Like, what do we do about SEO and why does it matter?
Well, it's very important when it comes to content. Besides just the research and keywords, you have a lot of things to add to your article, starting from SEO title, meta description, alt text for images. So there's a lot of things to do. But what I think where it is important and where people might make mistakes is they think of it as only serving the search engine. So think of it, okay, this is a checklist I need to do so my article can rank. But there's more to that. For example, besides serving the SEO, you first want to serve your website and yourself as an organization, because you want them to click on your result and not the result of your competition. Because nowadays, especially with software, the competition is fierce. Everyone is talking about similar things, or the search is crowded. So you want to serve yourself and your organization, but also serve the reader, because you want to think about what is it that is the search intent of those people. If they type something and they end up reading your blog and figure out this is not what I was looking for, they will just leave and bounce and probably don't come back to your website. So you want to think about them as well. So how do you mix all those SEO elements to make them presentable for the reader? So
Milana, I know you are one of our top experts on the research and the SEO side. Help me understand from a process point of view. In our process, would you or somebody on the team say, this is the topic we need to write for, this is the target audience, these are the SEO terms we need to optimize the content for, and then do you yourself write it or do you hand it off to a writer? Like, how does that process work?
I usually pick the topic and the keyword, and kind of guide the writer, like, okay, write about this, because, from my research, I noticed that these are the things that people write about when it comes to this term specifically. Or, for example, this resource has a lot of great points, so maybe add that. And then Danette handles the rest. So she's the one that actually incorporates the keyword into the title, because she writes it. So it's best for her to pick the title exactly and to write a meta description. So we kind of work together there.
So what I like about that approach is that there's a lot of people out there who outsource their blog creation because it's more efficient, it's more affordable, it allows them to multi-purpose, whatever your reason might be. That means you in-house can do exactly what Milan is doing. You can do all the research, the topics, the target audience, the SEO, and then you can give it to your writer who may be outsourced and say, there you go, do your thing. And that's brilliant. That way the writer will hug you, love you, kiss you, because they have so much more guidance now. So that's research. That's how we do it. Okay, let's move into content creation now. Nat, I'm told you're the content rock star on the team. Do you agree? Are you the rock star on the team? Do you carry them?
I'd say it's a joint effort.
Politically correct answer.
Oh,
a diplomatic answer, but I really
I
think
secretly
so.
know you're the rock star.
I really think so.
It's all Nat.
It can be, there's a question about challenges. Sometimes I do have a writer's block. Believe it or not, although it's not creative writing, sometimes I sit and stare at my blank document for an hour before I can define the intro. So I really do need another pair of eyes after the entire process to say this should be changed a bit, this doesn't sound natural, it's too complex of a sentence, because I tend to write complex sentences. So I think that the editing part is really, really, really important. And when I revisit my blog post after writing, I only see the things that I wanted to convey, and I cannot always spot an error, and that's my problem. So those two ladies are always besides to give me a hand and lend me a pair of eyes, 4 eyes in this case, and it's that's why the previous blog post, sales blog post, turned out to be so good, thanks to the 3 of them, because Fiona's topic was really great.
So I want to stop there for a second. A lot of people who are handing the writing off, whether you're handing it off to an internal resource like Nat, or you're handing off to an external contractor resource, you think if I do what Milana does and I make all this research, I can just hand it off and it's done. They should never need to bother me again and just give me a finished product. And I see both Milana and Elena smiling, because that's definitely not the case. And Nat hit it up, which is, writers are human. They struggle sometimes. They have writer's blocks, or they get blinders on. They only see what they wrote. And it's that collaboration, that iteration, that group, cooperation that allows us to take a blog from good to great to make sure it hits the mark. But I got a question for you, Nat. Now, a topic is chosen for you. Maybe it's Milana, maybe it's somebody else, and it's over to you. And you've got the guidance, keywords, who's the target audience, the reader, etc. But now you have to research it to be truly able to give good advice inside that blog column. Because as much as we love you and you are a rock star, you don't know everything. So how do you research it? What's your trick?
Well,
help me out.
I've been in this line of work for about 5 years, and I sometimes memorize the entire bunch of stats. So I always know where to look for, and whenever, for example, sometimes I feel as if I'm repeating myself, because there are very, very few relevant stats and research studies. So sometimes when you want to trace back to the original research, you find out that there's not one. It's something that was pulled out of, Harvard Business Review, published in, I don't know, 2014. So I do struggle a bit to corroborate every piece of advice or every stat that I have to provide, but it's a lot of time. That's my trick. I do practically mine for information for hours sometimes. Although I did write a lot of similar on a lot of similar topics, and I do know some industry specifics, especially when it comes to B2B. It's hard to articulate everything I would like to say it in a fresh way and to add something really valuable, and that actually requires a lot of time, which is why additional edits are so much needed to add another perspective. Yeah.
Doing the research is a challenge. Staying fresh, having a fresh take is a challenge. Are there other challenges that you find when you're making the content? So you have writer's block, staying fresh, doing the research. Other challenges that you would have, and how do you overcome them? Clearly, you rely upon the collaboration for some help.
Yeah, I also
other
use
challenges?
Some tools, meaning Grammarly, but it's just for superficial, just to polish a couple of things. And other than that, I don't know, I have to read a lot. Actually, I read thousands and thousands and thousands of other blog posts, longer forms, and I learned something, so I tend to use it. But the main challenges are staying relevant, not repeating yourself, and being able to communicate something to be actionable, something that really adds value to your audience, not just to, say something for the sake of it.
The actionable, that gets lost in so many people. I love you make that point. Let me ask you this question. So you're writing the blogs, but most companies have other content. Maybe they have webinars, maybe they have podcasts, maybe they have videos, maybe they have live streams. I don't know. Maybe they have press releases, maybe they have product brochures and collateral. Do you ever consume that other content from those other channels so that you can cross-reference them in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, I do have to do that. I tend to follow our, people from our industry. I also follow a lot of people on LinkedIn. And as you may know, I regularly have to watch your Inside Sales podcast. And sometimes I do come across really valuable pieces of advice that I tend to incorporate and use later in my writing. The previous one with Lee Saltz was, it was one of the best I watched. Not that the others were subpar, but this one was really interesting.
And that's like anything, right? Some content is good, some content's not so good. And I just watched a review with Victor Antonio on the Lee Saltz new book recently. And his comment, which I think applies to blogs, he said last night on his video review he posted on LinkedIn, he said, if I get one great piece of actionable advice out of a book or a blog post, to me, that was worth my time and or money. And so managing expectations there. But I love what Nat also said here. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. Nat is watching social media and again, pop culture and celebrities, as Elena talked to. And then she's tying back some of these references for third-party credibility. But what's even more important is if Nat writes a blog post and she quotes Lee Saltz in it, because Lee Saltz made a point in his new book that applies to the blog post, then that ties back to Milana's point about SEO and getting found and getting picked up by an audience you may not otherwise get. Not to mention, it makes your topic sound more credible because it's been validated by a trusted third-party influencer or thought leader or celebrity that others trust and validate. So that's what keeps it interesting. It's not just me saying this in this blog post. Others are saying the same thing. I love that. Okay. That's content creation. Let's move on to now reviewing, promoting, and more. It's a nice little bridge there. We said if we can talk about bringing in third parties that can often help our reach, our promotion. Elena, I believe you're the expert when it comes to reviewing. By the way, reviewing is code for saying this sucks, you have typos, you're wrong, or this is awesome. It goes both ways. But also promoting. So I got to ask you, because you've been around the block for a little bit here at VanillaSoft, which is my way of saying she's not 19 anymore.
I'm old.
Since you were running the blog for such a long time, what changes have you done to keep it relevant?
So over time, the whole sales process has changed because everything has adapted to more social and more video and all kinds of things. So we've had to adapt to what we're talking about just to stay relevant, changing topics and finding out what's happening with the buyer's journey. Buyers have completely changed. I mean, that going back to what Milana said earlier, is having a blog is huge for your buyers because they don't want to talk to you until they're ready to buy. So having all that information out there helps. And you have to stay relevant by following those influencers like Nat was talking about and just doing your research, finding out what's going on, incorporating current events. And if you're not doing those things, then you're not relevant. And if you're not giving them information that they can take and use, they don't care. They're going to go. So you have to stay relevant with what you're talking about and with those topic ideas, which makes that whole research part key. And especially because everything changes. You have to adapt to what's happening.
One of the areas I know you've also changed over the years is your ability to repurpose other content into blog posts. You didn't always do that originally. Can you help me understand what that is, what that means, what that involves?
So we will sometimes take a little clip from maybe inside sales or webinar, and sometimes we'll put that into the blog, or we'll use a CTA at the end of a blog to go back to a webinar that's related to the topic that we're talking about. So there's all different kinds of ways that you can incorporate all the different pieces of your content that you have into your blog, and then repurpose it back to those things to keep them on your site and keep them moving around. Does that answer your question?
All right, I got to ask a question.
Okay.
It does answer the question. Thank you very much. Stay fresh, stay current, stay dynamic, and experiment. I mean, that's one of the things that you didn't talk about, but I know there's been a continual testing process to see if certain things work. For a period of time there, several years ago, we would actually create a voiceover for every single blog. If you wanted to listen to it instead of read it, you could. But then that became unsustainable, didn't get a lot of traction, so we get rid of that. So there's, always experimenting. Now, Nat talked about the review process and how important that is to her. But I'm going to ask you, because you're the chief reviewer, and some writers, not Nat, of course, Nat's awesome, but other writers might be a little territorial, a little emotional about what they've wrote. What they've written is Hemingway, it's War and Peace, it's awesomeness. So how do you handle the review process so that it's constructive and efficient?
That is hard sometimes because you don't ever want someone to take it personally. And because we also have to make sure that we're getting the voice of VanillaSoft. So you have to think about it. We want it to be conversational. We want it to be skimmable, and all these different things need to go into it. So I'm looking at it, and I'm not doing it to be personal. I think Nat and all of our other writers know that, and that's what makes it good to be able to just go in and do those editing, because sometimes I might say, the flow doesn't fit for me. Can you move this around or something like that? And it's I think as long as all the parties understand that you're trying to get it to be the best that it can be so that your audience will say, that was an awesome blog, then I don't think anybody takes it personally. But it can be hard because there might be a lot of things that I might change or something I might do. And while sometimes I'm like, oh, they're going to hate me, but at the same time, that we're all on the same team. We're all trying to reach the same goals. Now, Nat might think different. Nat might be like, I want to slap Elena when it.
I'm watching Nat smile. When you said they might hate me, and she got a big smile on her face.
I'm not
that was
territorial.
Too funny.
It does. Sometimes people can be a little insecure whether what they wrote sucks, but in the end, I always check what Elena edited, and I noticed that it apparently has too much to do with VanillaSoft voice and that flow that she's talking about, that she wanted to convey a message in a particular way. So I do not take it personally in that sense that oh my God, what did she do to my blog post? But I do wanna reach the point where she wouldn't have to, I don't know, make too many edits. But that's on my part, not hers. That's it.
If it makes you feel any better than that, she's ripped apart my writing before too. In fact,
that's
Elena is one of the few people who can actually write a blog post or maybe a social media post, draft it for me, and I read it and I think I wrote it. She's got my voice captured. It's really kind of scary.
It is scary.
Okay. Elena, you used the term reviewing, talked about it's conversational, it's personal. Nat, you used the term voice. That's not something we've talked about yet, voice. Now, Elena, as you're reviewing content, and maybe there's different writers. I mean, we use Nat all the time, but maybe I'm an organization that has a bunch of different contracted writers I use. How do you ensure that, A, is voice important? And B, how do you ensure the voice is consistent no matter who wrote it?
So I think just focusing on not being too formal, make it conversational, and understanding who you're writing for and knowing that whatever somebody's going to read, it needs to speak to them. And if it's too formal, like to whom it may concern, nobody's going to read that. They're going to look at it and be like, nope, this is not for me. Throw in a little sarcasm, joke, just make it cheeky, quirky. Those kinds of things are our voice. We like to goof around. We're fun. And so we like to make it more conversational as the voice of VanillaSoft. You see that on our social. You see that in our writing. We have those things that make it more laid back, casual, and that's our voice. But every company is going to be different on the voice that they might have. And you want to try and be consistent with that across the board.
That's huge. Okay. We talked a bit about, I guess how it reads, but let me look at it from a different point of view. Because you use the word skimmable. So in a nutshell, does the look and feel of the post really, does it matter? And if so, why? Because it's something you read. It's not a piece of art. So help me understand, does look and feel matter?
Absolutely.
And how do we ensure our look and feel?
And this is going to sound crazy, but I actually hate reading. So for me, even though I'm doing all the editing and I do writing, I'm not a big reader. But for me, the look and feel of that blog is huge because I don't want to just see words. And everybody learns differently. So I want to be able to go to this page and say, okay, what can I learn from this? Boom, boom, boom. They've got headers. They've got bullets. They're giving me a picture that makes me laugh or something like that. It's engaging me and not just a straight up 1,500 word post with no headers, no bullets, no nothing. Because I'm going to look at that and I'm going to be like, no, this is so not for me. But you're not going to keep them there if it's not skimmable and you're not giving them things that they can easily grab out of it. Those nuggets like Victor Antonio was talking about, they're not going to find those little nuggets that you learn and you can take with them if they don't stay on your page. So the look and feel absolutely does matter.
So I love the fact that we talked about the blog post having call to actions. But the call to actions were not like buy our product. They were like, here's related articles, or here's a link to a social media post, or if you want to learn more, go there. So you're always adding value. That's one thing that I think you guys do a great job on. But I got to ask you, because this comes up in marketing and sales all the time, when I'm sending an email, what do I call a prospect? What's the right time and day to publish and why? Enlighten me, Elena.
Well, we used to actually publish 2 blogs a week, which we may go back to that at some point. So Mondays and Thursdays are typically the best days to publish a blog early in the morning. So we used to publish them on Mondays, but we're kind of, like you said, we test things out. So we're testing things out right now. We're only publishing them on Wednesdays right now. And also for us, we don't want to compete with content we are already publishing too. So we've got our podcast on Tuesdays. So we don't want to publish something on Tuesday because we want that podcast to get all the fame and glory because Daryl Prell published a podcast and he is amazing. So we have different ways that we do it. And we're always testing. We're seeing what days of the week work best. So it's really, you got to do your own testing. I know that everybody, all the gurus and everybody's going to tell you what you should do, but you can't just say, oh, well, Daryl said this, so I have to do it this way. It's going to be the best for my business. No, that's not the case. You have to do testing, test those things out. Try it. Did it work? Was it the best time to post on Monday at 7 a.m. or not? Was it better to post it on Wednesday? So you just have to try it out yourself and see what's going to work for your audience and your industry and find out where it's going to be the best bang for your buck.
The one thing I'll remind folks is why this gets lost sometimes. Why do you do a blog? There's a couple reasons, but first and foremost, and I bet you Milana would be yelling at me if I don't say this, is to drive organic inbound traffic, which is why SEO and keyword research and knowing your ideal customer profile and your target personas, all of those are critical because that's what you're trying to do. That's the return on your investment. Secondarily, it might be the corporate brand or a voice or personality, or it might help a sale in the middle of the cycle because, as Milana said, there's top of funnel, middle of funnel. You can use these blog posts accordingly. But it is first and foremost inbound traffic. So testing when to do it is in your own selfish best interest, because if you generate leads because of those blog posts or you move a deal along because of those blog posts, that's all a return on your marketing spend, and you're going to be heroes in the organization. So that's
also,
massive.
Just something to add with Elena's point, when figuring out when to publish things, it's also important to think about when to promote them as well. Because, for example, if you're trying to doing your social scheduling at a certain time, it works best. It's okay if, for example, the blog is published a day earlier. Or, for example, if you do weekly newsletter like we do, for example, on Thursdays, you might want to get all the content ready by Thursday. So it makes sense that you promote it by Thursday or by the day that you do the newsletter, but also you have that additional boost of promotion inside the newsletter. So I think that's important as well.
And so let's talk about promotion. So how it's published, okay? Blog done. We've keyword researched it. We know our ICP and our personas. We know that it's maybe a middle of funnel piece. We've given it to Nat, our writer, our rockstar writer. She's made an incredible piece. We've collaborated on it. We're happy. We've reviewed it. We've tweaked it. Life is great. We know the day we're going to publish it. We publish it. And then we need to promote it to get eyes on there or to draw traffic in. What's the trick to promoting our blogs so that we achieve our goals?
So you want to have the right image and the right size image. A lot of people will just do one image. If you do one image, it needs to be a certain size so that it fits across all social channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. But here's the thing that some people do. They do like a Instagram size, which will work for Facebook and LinkedIn. But then if you put it on Twitter, they're not going to see the full image. So you've then lost them. They might not see whatever the wording is on the image. So you have to make sure your image is right, the right size for the right channels. And then you also want to make sure you're putting the right hashtags in, you're tagging people. And this is very time consuming because trying to find the right hashtags that people are actually using that associate to your topic, and then having to go and search to find if someone was mentioned in it, because unfortunately not everybody makes it easy and puts on their contact info in LinkedIn, their Twitter and everything like that. So then you got to go and search for them, and there might be 5 people that all have the same name, and you got to make sure you're getting the right one. So there's a lot of pieces that go into the whole promotion of it and tagging the company. So it's very time consuming if you want to do it right. And then I also do for Instagram, I don't publish it the same day. I wait until later in the week, and then I'll take like a statement or a stat from that blog, and I'll make it an image, and then that's what gets shared on Instagram. So because it's hard to get people to click sometimes on Instagram because links aren't clickable in your posts. So I try to make it something that grabs their attention. They're like, I might want to learn more about that than just the title that is of the blog. So there's a lot of different pieces that go into promoting it, knowing what time to promote on the different channels. LinkedIn is best around lunchtime. Facebook is sometimes best at 10 a.m. or 3 p.m. So it just depends on the different channels you're posting on and what time and how you're doing it. There's a lot of things that you have to consider if you want to do it right. But test it out for yourself to see which ones work for your audience.
I would add 2 more steps to that. One, to Elena's point, if Nat has, as the writer, has added a tagged a person, Lee Saltz, that you would reach out to Lee Saltz or their people and say, heads up, we just published this blog post. We're going to start promoting it. You may want to as well. Here's some links. Here's some hashtags, because we've done all the research for you already. Here's some images. We've already done that too. Here you go. So you want that extended reach. That is awesome. But one of the things I think so a lot of people don't do that. But one of the areas that a lot of people really drop the ball on is the follow-on engagement. So, Elena, you're great for this. So you did the publish, and then people on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook respond to your post. You're really good at responding to their comments, like phenomenal, which drives more eyeballs to that post, which drives more click-throughs to your blog post. Mm-hmm. That's killer. You're really good. And so many people miss that point. All right. So that's research, content, and then, reviewing and promotion. Those are the 3 key areas that Milana outlined. We're in a rapid fire now. A handful of questions. Anybody can answer it. I'm going to just throw it out there. Here we go. Common mistakes people make. Just the top 1, 2, or 3. Go.
I think strictly writing for SEO purposes. SEO is definitely critical, but when you get too caught up in just writing for a keyword and not what's going to matter to your audience is a mistake sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
any other mistakes?
I would also say maybe being too general on the blog, not serving your audience. Because you might want to figure out, and that's the mistake Elena is talking about. You may, in your SEO research, figure out, okay, for example, keyword, what is a lead, has a lot of volume, people are looking for it. And then some companies might want, to create a blog that says, the definition of a lead. But that's not something, for example, VanillaSoft needs. All our customers know that already. So, keeping things too general for me, I think that's often a mistake.
I would add more examples to my blog post too. Examples about how to actually implement and illustrate what I was saying earlier in the blog post. So I like that takeaway also when you put a takeaway after each section to simply recap what you were saying, and sometimes when there's an example of best practice that you know and that you can relate to, it's an excellent idea to incorporate it in the blog post.
What's the most misunderstood aspect of blogs? Research, content creation, review, promotion, the purpose. What's the most misunderstood thing that people get wrong?
It takes a lot of time to do everything.
Time. Anybody else?
I would say also time, definitely, because it's crazy, but not taking the opportunity to move them further down the funnel. So not including those internal links or those CTAs, you're missing opportunities where they might just leave. But if you have, hey, check out this webinar that's along this topic, and then they go check out that webinar, I think you're missing those opportunities.
Okay. What's the one tool that if I took away from you, any of you can all have different answers. The one tool, if I took away from you, you would threaten to quit on the spot?
Can we have 2? Grammarly.
Sure, you can have 2.
And Social Bee. Because Social Bee is what I use for my social promotions, which goes back to being able to reshare the same thing over. They are the best when it comes to having things get put back into your queue to reshare. Hands down, I would be upset if you made us get rid of that.
Milana, Nat?
I would say Ahrefs.
Grammarly.
So Nat's saying Grammarly too. Looks like
Ahrefs, and in my case, Grammarly, because there's a word that Milana knows, but I'm not going to say it in the air because on the air because it's not a polite word. But sometimes it does happen to me when I want to use it, and I cannot always spot when I missed a single letter, and it turns out into a very foul-sounding word. So with Grammarly, as their recent meme says, it won't be warm regards, WORM regards, but warm, WARM. So basically that's it for me.
And Milana, is there a tool that I took away from you, said you can't use it anymore? You would say, go to hell, Prail?
Yeah, I would say Ahrefs. It's an SEO tool I use for years. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Ahrefs. I knew you were going to say Ahrefs. Yeah. That's down pat. Okay. You can only give one piece of advice to our audience when it comes to blogs. Nat, start with you. What's your one piece of advice?
Take as much time as you need to research and write it.
Elena, one piece of advice.
Make it skimmable.
Ooh. Milana, last word is yours.
I would say be mindful of your team's time.
Oh, time is the
And
theme.
everybody has a lot of things on their plate, so be mindful.
Be mindful. I love it. Great stuff here, folks. So this is an award-winning blog creation, promotion, machine team. They're impressive, and they make me proud every single day. If you have any questions for them, reach out to any of them on LinkedIn or social media. Email them directly. And if you don't know how to get a hold of them, come to me. I'm Daryl Prail, and you can just find my name anywhere, as Elena says, apparently. So I'll hook you up, and we will get you that information you want. We hope you enjoyed today's session. We had fun doing it. And hey, we'd love to hear your feedback. What did we miss? Tell us. Share it with us. We'll talk. We might even use social media to promote your feedback because, hey, that's what we do. We're done. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.